What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Scouting Combine here. I'm your host, Hussam Patel, and I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Kellyn. Kellyn, how you doing today, bud?
I'm good, man. How you doing? I mean, first of all, before I even get into, I am worried about how you're doing. But I'll just say, you all, people who don't know me, I'm an Ohio State guy, right? So today is the day. It's the game. It's the day. 364 days a year. You're looking forward to this one day, So, and especially we didn't have it last year. We didn't have the game last year. So even double that, whatever that is.
And I know my viewers know that I am a Ohio State guy as well, and I've routinely censored it out here too. But I've always said F Michigan. I've said it to
Yes,
all the people who have come on who are Michigan fans and Michigan analysts as well. But yeah, block out that block
absolutely,
out that M. Block
absolutely.
out that M. That's all it's about. But it's rivalry week, man. I
hmm
mean, you got the game, you got the Iron Bowl, you have what was formerly known as a Civil War, but I think it's the Platypus Cup or something like that.
Platypus Trophy, yeah,
Yeah, the
Oregon State, I
Platypus
think so.
Trophy.
hmm
Then you have the Battle of Bedlam, and we'll get into this. But like, how exciting is rivalry week for you as a fan, man?
It always makes me, even if I'm not like it's not the Ohio States and all that, it always makes me nervous because there could just be so much that turns college football upside down. College football is a weird game sometimes. Teams that shouldn't win football games. Good teams lose to bad teams. I mean, you almost saw. I know Nebraska is a lot better than what their record says, but they're a
Three
couple
and
plays
nine
away
and
from
have a
losing.
zero
Yeah,
point differential, man.
yeah, I know, man. They should have. They very well could have beaten Iowa yesterday. I mean, like I said, good teams lose to bad teams. Just guys step up. I mean, it's college football. It's where legends are made.
It is where legends are made, but let's go right ahead into the review of Week 12. I mean, the Buckeyes absolutely throttled Michigan State. I mean, they stopped Kenneth Walker, who was a Heisman favorite as well. Peyton Thorne was just he was on the ground most of the day, and that Sparty defense is just nothing. Like it was non-existent at all. And the same happened to Oregon. The Utah Utes, they did the same exact thing to give a
hmm
shakeup of the college football playoff picture. Now,
hmm
knowing college football, as we both know, we might get some chaos scenarios for the football playoffs. And it's looking like, it was a big shakeup last week, and it might be a big shakeup this week too.
hmm
Let's dive right in. Let's go ahead and talk about the game, not the game, the game.
Yes, sir.
The game. And look, the line right now, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes by 8.5, and the over under is 64.5. What do you think about that line and what Vegas has put on?
Um, you know, I couldn't really tell you a lot about the bets Vegas does, especially with these games. Sometimes, like I said last week on our tailgate show, I don't know. I got scared money, but I should have took Ohio State, right? I mean, that was just not a matchup that they had any chance or losing, with Michigan State's passing attack. But it makes more sense for it to be closer this week. Michigan's just a better matchup. They're at home. I still think Ohio State is clearly the better team, but not by a lot, and not in the gap that we saw in 19 or even in 18 for that matter. And the scheme is a lot different for Michigan in that defense for that gave up 62 and 18 and 56 and 19. So it'll
Yeah.
be different this year. I think. I don't really hope. I hope it's
Yeah,
another
you don't have
blowout,
Don
but
Brown anymore. You
right.
more so have Mike McDonald, whose scheme changes things up and helps
Mhm.
out these edge rushers, especially for Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo.
Yeah. So that'll be different. That's the biggest difference from the last time we saw these two teams is that Michigan defense, and they're going against a more talented receiving core. So I mean, imagine them playing. I know Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, those guys are going to beat man coverage regardless. But now you've got seasoned Chris Olave, seasoned Garrett Wilson, and baby Jackson Smith and Jigbo, who still has another year to go, which is crazy. But and then even guys behind that, Jeremy Ruckert, Julian Fleming, just it's ridiculous. Emeka Egbuka, I think, is active for today, so we'll see.
And like almost like an hour or so ago, Jeremy Ruckert, he just just was invited to the Senior Bowl as
hmm
one. Look, these Ohio State wide receivers, they're doing NFL wide receiver things, and you know why? Especially if you're a Dolphins fan, you know this wide receiver, Brian Hartline, who was one of my favorite wide receivers when I was a kid, is the wide receivers coach for the Buckeyes, and he's teaching these kids
hmm
just absolutely amazing things. And look, the Buckeyes, they have an elite offensive line, a running back in Tavion Henderson, who can become a star in the NFL once his name is called upon draft night, and a quarterback and CJ Stroud that he just needs a little bit more time and experience. But, for the Wolverines to pull this off, they're going to need Ohio State to make a ton of mistakes, which the Buckeyes rarely ever do, Kellyn.
Yeah, and especially in the secondary, that's been their weakness since the beginning of the year. But now you're finally starting to see them come on. Cam Brown was recovering from an ACL, I believe, in 2020, and now he's back. I'm not saying he's what he used to be because I think he used to be the fastest guy on the team. I don't know if he's that anymore. But Denzel Burke, the true freshman across from him, those guys have been really good. Bryson Shaw, I've bagged on him a lot. He's the high safety, he's the cover safety for Ohio State. I don't know how much he's going to play that today, but he's gotten better as the years went on. The linebackers have gotten better. That entire defense has gotten better. Even the change from from Combs to Matt Barnes as the play caller on defense. There wasn't an immediate shift in output and production from the defense right away, but as time has gone on, they've gotten so much better.
Yeah, they've gotten so much better. And to make this even a little bit more interesting is that the Wolverines, they're good at running the ball, and they need to run the ball.
Yes, they do.
Against this defense. I mean, Minnesota, they rumbled over the Buckeyes D in the season opener with Mo Ibrahim, and they were able to move well and make it a fight. Oregon ran for almost 270 yards and won. So can this Wolverines offense and offensive line help Hassan Haskins and everybody else to go over 200 yards rushing today?
Yes, but I don't know if that'll be enough. I think they can run the ball as much as they want to, and maybe they'll get some explosive plays. I think, really throwing it back here, but 2018, the Maryland game, I think Anthony McFarland had just an insane rushing output that game, and Maryland was able to put points up. I don't know if Michigan will be able to do that. I don't think this Ohio State defense is that vulnerable, but Quorum Haskins, those are two really good running backs, right? Michigan's ground game is there. Ohio State's. I think Ohio State all year long they weren't playing their best players. I think now they're playing Cody Simon and Court Williams, those guys who can really kind of play a bunch of positions. Ronnie Hickman has really been playing well as of late. So, I mean, they stopped Kenneth Walker so well, right? And it's not like I don't think Michigan State is as talented up front as Michigan is, but I don't even think Walker was Michigan State's leading rusher last week. So Buckeyes have really, really, if they can stop Michigan's run game, they're going to win the football game. Simple as that.
As simple as that. And look, that Michigan secondary, they're 8th in the nation in passing defense, but they're going to have to hold really, really high against a flying Buckeyes aerial attack and not let this get out of hand, kind of like what Michigan State did. But the matchup I'm really watching is along the trenches between Thayer Munford, Nicholas Petit-Frere against Aiden Hutchinson, and David Ojabo. Petit-Frere, he hasn't held his own against powerful edge rushers, and he's going up against Aiden Hutchinson, Ojabo, and the rest of that defensive line. If he's able to hold his ground in a couple of sets, would this improve his draft stock?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially today. I mean, he's been. I think his best test has been Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, and Nick Petit-Frere did not really do well in that matchup. I thought he lost more than he won on a down-to-down basis. And he's a heavy-footed guy. That's really something he's going to have to work on. He's really not. He's kind of a foot in mud type of guy. Now he's pretty technical, but it's just that athleticism is not all the way there. So Aiden Hutchinson is really going to be a guy that could take advantage of that. I think Michigan's best bet is to put Hutchinson on the left on Ohio State's left side against Petit-Frere, and then DeJuan Jones, who's the big 6'8". I think he's like 350, 360 right tackle. I think Ojabo is the best matchup for him, just because Jones has been able to rely on his wideness, right?
Yeah,
he doesn't have to set as far, right? So he can kind of cover a lot of ground. Ojabo is probably one of the only edge rushers in the country who can win by getting around him. Even George Karlaftis, right, who's a really kind of a pure power rusher, he's not going to win around the edge against a guy like Jones, because Jones is actually pretty quick-footed for a guy his size. Ojabo can get underneath and win around the edge and can win back inside. It's a matchup that Jones hasn't seen yet this year. So that's the big thing. If they can hold those guys in check, if CJ Stroud can have more than 2.5 seconds to throw on average every play, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. That's all you need with this offense, maybe even 2 seconds. But if you get 2.5, that it's good night. Good night, good wishes.
Good night, good wishing. 2 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but it is
It's
a
more
lot
than enough for those
in the
guys.
NFL and in college as well.
Yeah.
So these type of rivalry games, it comes down sometimes to one player. Who do you think will become the player that'll have his name shine in the brightest of lights today?
I'll give two. If Michigan's going to win, I think Daxton Hill is really going to have to be that guy in the secondary. Not saying that he's going to be able to make a lot of plays because they might just be able to throw away from him, right? But he's a guy that can come up and be an enforcer in the run game, fill gaps in the run game, and then he can make plays in the pass game. So I think if Michigan's going to win, he's going to be a big, big part of making plays, being around the ball all day. And then Ohio State, I'll just say it's CJ Stroud. I think it's snowing today in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, they're in
Right.
the high 20s, upper
Yeah.
30s.
So there you I mean that's Michigan Ohio State weather. That's just what you get for being part of that rivalry. So, throwing the ball through snow is not an easy thing. I still think, they'll have the heaters on the sideline and all that. They'll be fine. But if he can be able to throw the ball through the snow and not take sacks, right? He hasn't faced a pass rush that's going to be able to get to him as quick today. So it might be a little shell shocking at first for him. But if he doesn't take the sacks, no negative plays, no turnovers, once again, I mean, like you said, Ohio State just doesn't have to make mistakes. If they don't do that, they'll be fine.
Yeah, and they'll be fine. And I predict Ohio State to win this 44-31 against Michigan. What do you think, man?
I think I went 49-24. I think that was mine. Yeah.
Now look, listen. I know you're the club quarterback. I know there's a little bit of favoritism there, but
a little bit.
A little bit, but you think that's real enough? You think that's real enough?
I think I'll go 49-24. Yeah, and I think that the game could be closer than what that score says. But I
mean,
think
imagine Michigan wins 9-7. And
I know, right? That would be
completely shakes up the playoff picture.
I know, man. That would be crazy.
Of course, and that would be crazy. Speaking of crazy, we all remember that kick six in the Iron Bowl. And we're going to be talking about the Iron Bowl today as Alabama visits Auburn. Right now, the line is Alabama favored by 19.5 points, and the over-under is 55.5. Now, look, Alabama, they should be able to move the ball however they want to. But coming off an almost 560-yard passing day against the Razorbacks, Bryce Young and that offense will look to get off to a fast start. What have you seen from Bryce Young this season?
He's kind of been everything as advertised, right? He was kind of branded as this really, really athletic and really accurate, quarterback coming out of modern day and a winner in high school. And now he's a winner at Alabama. He's just kind of made all the throws. He's done all the flashy stuff. He's made the throws in the run. He's escaped the pocket. He's ran the ball really well. He's just kind of done everything. I mean, next year when we talk, and DJ Uiagalelei he's probably going to be able to improve, but I don't think he's on the level of Stroud or Young right now. But those two, Stroud and Young, are by far and away that the two guys we'll be talking about going into the next year as far as that top quarterback spot for the draft.
And look, and speaking about quarterbacks, unfortunately for the Auburn Tigers, they may be forced to lean on running back Tank Bigsby, who was, by the way, a fantastic name, to keep them into the game. Starting quarterback Bo Nix, who's had a roller coaster career as the quarterback. He injured his ankle in a game up against Mississippi State. He's going to miss the rest of the season. Now, that passing game wasn't anything stellar with Nix at quarterback. And TJ Finley does not have the same type of experience as Nix has in these quote-unquote big games, but it is crucial. Do you think, Bigsby will be able to run the ball efficiently up against this Crimson Tide defense?
If Finley really can't get a rhythm going through the air, I just think Alabama's too good. Christian Harris and Henry To'o, I think, is the other linebacker. Those guys have really kind of struggled tackling, but they're still two very good athletes, two really good football players. Like I know that the eyes are bad for Harris, and like I said, he's missed tackles. He just kind of seems to be in the wrong places. But he's still a really good football player, really athletic. And then I don't need to talk about Willie Anderson. Willie Anderson is the best player in college football right now. Fedarian Mathis, their defensive tackle, has been playing very, very well as of late. And then they've got a true freshman 5-star coming off the edge that's been playing more and more. I can't remember his name. Dallas Turner, I think it may be. And then Drew Sanders, their linebacker. It's Alabama, man. They've got players everywhere.
Yeah, I put it into my scouting notes of who to watch on the article that was posted yesterday. I just said players to watch. You got to watch the entire team, man. Just everybody is an NFL talent except maybe the punter and the kicker. You never.
they've had J.K. Scott in the past at punter. Now Alabama's always been bad at kicker for whatever reason, but I mean maybe punter. I don't know.
I don't know. And look, it's unlike the Crimson Tide to have an inconsistent rushing attack. And I know last week they had a couple of linebackers take running back reps, even in game
Really?
as well. Yeah,
Wow.
it was in practice. It was in practice last week. Look, they ranked 71st in the entire country, and Young has made it work as a passer and a dual threat quarterback. So, is this going to be a game where Young shines in the spotlight once again, where he goes off for 400, 500 yards behind this Alabama offense, which has Jamison Williams as its star wide receiver?
Yeah, probably. I would say yes. And Auburn is actually a pretty good matchup for Bama because I think Auburn's their defense is pretty good. They've got a lot of talent. I don't think they've played
They
up
have
to it this
talent in
year.
the back end too with
Yeah,
Nahemia Pritchett, Roger
yeah.
Mccreery, Smoke
Smoke Monday.
Monday. Oh man,
Absolutely. They've got all those guys. And then, even at linebacker, Owen Popoza, Kobe McLean, those are two NFL guys. They might not, I think Popo is a little bit higher ranked right now as a prospect. Derek Hall on the defensive line. I think they've got players at every part of every part of the defense. I just don't know if they're on that level to stop Williams, Mechie, Slade Bolden, right? I mean,
yeah.
Alabama, they've just got guys everywhere. So, like I said, once again, it's Alabama, man. They're never not going to have talent. It's next man up always will be with them.
It's always replace and replenish with Alabama. So look, is there going to be some type of kick six or a wild ending or some type of pick six, sack fumble? What do you think, man?
It always seems to happen at Jordan-Hare. When the Crimson Tide play at home, it's never interesting. At least not since the Cam Newton game, right? I can't remember what year that was, but when Cam Newton went there, shocked them, came back
Oh
up and
nine
beat them.
or
Maybe
10
2010,
something?
something like
Yeah.
that. But ever since then, Alabama's dominated at home. But they've lost the last two at Auburn. At 17, they lost. They were 11-0, and Jalen Hurts was struggling. I think Auburn won that game 26-21. That was the Jarrett Stidham year. And then 19, same thing happened. I think that was Tua was hurt. Mac Jones, that was might have been his first or second start of his career. Auburn won on some crazy plays. I think they had 2 pick sixes. So if Auburn's going to win, something crazy like that is going to have to happen. I don't think this Auburn team, or at least the separation between Bama and Auburn, is a lot wider this year than in 17 and 19. But weird things happen to Jordan-Hare in the Iron Bowl, so we'll see.
We'll
Auburn's
see.
going to need that.
We will see, and I do expect Alabama to win this game a little bit easily. It's not disrespect to Auburn. It's Bama, bro.
Yeah,
It's Bama. So I have Alabama winning 52-20. What do you think?
I think I'd go somewhere around there. Probably. I'll just say what you say. I don't know if I'd have like anything more to add to it, but I think it's like you're looking at probably like a 4-score type of deal, somewhere
Ooh.
around there, 4 or 5.
Yeah, and that's where Vegas has about 19 and a half,
Mm-hmm.
20 points, something like that.
Yeah.
We're going down south. I mean, actually, no, we're going out west a little bit to the state of Oklahoma. It's the battle for Bedlam, man.
Yes.
And look, this is one of these primetime games where Lincoln Riley's name has been thrown out as the next head coach of the LSU Tigers. And then you have Mike Gundy, who we know is probably one of the top 5 coaches in college football, especially with winning percentages. I mean, only Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban have had multiple 10-win seasons, and next in line is Mike Gundy with about 4 to 5 straight years of having 5-win seasons. So don't put that disrespect onto Mike Gundy. So Mike Gundy can coach really, really well.
Yeah.
When we're going to these betting lines, Oklahoma State is favored to win by 4. And Caleb Williams a little bit has struggled in the passing game the last 2 weeks. How can he do this up against a swarming Cowboys defense?
Yeah, I just think he has to be himself. And as cliche as that sounds, Lincoln Riley is still might be the best play caller in the country. He's definitely one of the most quarterback-friendly play callers in the country. So it's a lot about making it easy on your guy. And Williams has the talent. He's just young, right? Like you said with Stroud, he just needed a couple games. Now Williams has had a few games. Obviously the Texas game was a big one. So he's played on the big stage. He's made the comebacks on the big stage. That Baylor game was not very good for him. Obviously the game they lost, and he's just kind of struggled the last few weeks. Even that Kansas game, they weren't really on their A game. They kind of needed a miracle, not a miracle, but they kind of needed a little extra to win that game. So I think Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma is the more talented football team just based on paper. Oklahoma State has been playing better. They're hotter right now, but like I said, I mean, this is one of the we've seen, trains like in rivalry games just get stopped when they're favored. It happened to Michigan against Ohio State in 2018. It happened in Minnesota against Wisconsin in 19 when Minnesota was like 10-1. They were top 10 in the country.
Yeah.
It's happened before, and if it's going to happen, it's going to be this week, right? It's rivalry week. So we'll see. I think it's always a fun one. Bedlam has always been one of the more underrated matchups to me in college football rivalry sense, but this one will be a fun one. And like you said, Gundy has been one of the more underrated coaches in college football for a while now. So 2 10-win teams, Oklahoma State. It doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't get better than that. Speaking about rivalry games, about the train stopping, look what happened to Iowa up against Iowa State. I mean, they were the number 2 ranked country at one point this season, and they have significantly dropped after raking in a couple losses, and that momentum just not going their way. Now, the Cowboys have locked down a bid to its first Big 12 championship game, and every single year, whenever they play against Oklahoma, they get complacent on offense and defense. So what does Gundy need to do to not make that mistake?
Just don't, I know with Ohio State, and I know I've said that I've talked about them so much in the show, but they don't play Michigan like it's another game. It's a rivalry game. I think that's different for Oklahoma State. Maybe this just needs to be another football game for them. It's the big dog, right? Oklahoma's been the big brother. They've won this rivalry the last few years. I think the last time the Cowboys won was 2014. I think it was 2014. So it's been a minute. Just coach like it's another football game, man. Gundy, you've got guys, you've got talent. You're not on the level of Oklahoma, but you don't need to coach like that. You just need to trust your guys, trust your men, trust your horses. Play football. That's all you got to do.
Of course, and he's Gundy has seemed to get a little bit conservative when playing against Oklahoma, and he needs to open up this playbook and allow this offense and defense to confuse the Sooners. And look, Lincoln Riley, he's going to have his work cut out for him to scheme against a great defense. So what does he need to do up against rising freshman Colin Oliver on the edges and a pretty decent back-end secondary?
Yeah, just like I said, for Gundy, man, just be you. Just Lincoln Riley, just be you. And unfortunately, I'm a Bears fan, so Matt Nagy with the whole be you on this card. I don't want Matt Nagy to be him. But Lincoln Riley can be himself. But you've got guys, and on both sides of the ball, man. You've got the talented receivers. You've got Kennedy Brooks in the backfield. You've got a good offensive line, Caleb Williams, obviously. But on defense, Nick Benito, Perry, and Winfrey, Isaiah Thomas, that's a very, very good defensive front. And Oklahoma's defense has always been suspect. I think Alex Grinch is a average to below average defensive coordinator. But that's just what they've got right now. When they go to the SEC, that's going to have to change. They're going to have to get something on the defensive side of the ball. But I think
it'll be like Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah. Don't can't let that happen. But the object of football is to score more points than the other team. And if Lincoln Riley calls plays, that offense scores more than they don't score, they're going to be fine. You just got to have more than the other team does when the clock hits 0. So if that ends in, like, I think when Baker was there a couple years ago, it was like 62-52 or something like that, something outrageous. So, I mean, if it's one of those type of games, you just have to live with it. You just got to have more points than the other team.
And it's going to be a fun game, too.
That's what it
exactly.
is. Exactly.
And that's what it is. And I do expect this game to be a little bit of fun and maybe end this day, which might end in chaos. I have the Sooners winning 47-45.
Kind of like I just said, like the high scoring, outrageous type of game. But
of course, do you think Oklahoma just ekes right past the Cowboys?
I would probably take Oklahoma, yes, because like I said, I mean, we just see this happen so much in college football where a team playing so well runs into their rival that has been their big brother for a minute, and big brother just kind of takes them back down to earth. So just based on the weirdness of college football, I don't really have a reason outside of that. Oklahoma State's been playing better. I still think Oklahoma, like I said, is a better football team, but I just think, rivalry Saturday is a weird day and things happen. And I think Oklahoma wins. I think I would take a high scoring game somewhere like 48-42 or 45-42, something like that, somewhere or exactly around where you're sitting in the 40s and 50s with both teams having that.
And that's expected of any Big 12 game because there's no
Yeah.
defense played
Yeah.
in any Big 12 game. Now we're going to go to everybody's favorite segment, hashtag Hussam's Hot Shots. And we're going to be talking about a couple of good people today along with their matchups as well. The first one, we're talking about quarterback Malik Cunningham. Now, he has been a little bit of a hot topic. Him and Desmond Ritter a little bit as well. So, he's coming off his best performance of the season against Duke, accounting for over 500 yards of a total offense, 7 touchdowns, 0 picks. And, he's playing up against a Kentucky team who's pretty decent on defense in the SEC. He's a dynamic dual threat quarterback. He's thrown for more than 2,500 yards while adding close to 1,000 on the ground. The Cardinals' offense will need every bit of his explosive playmaking ability to pull off a win. His legs are used to create advantages in passing situations. You see it in rollouts. You see it in the RPOs as well. And he consistently uses his legs to move around a little bit in the pocket and gain some yards using his legs about 3, 4, 5, whatever he can do. In an underwhelming quarterback class, he could possibly find himself at the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl in front of NFL executives and scouts. And, if he makes the right impression, someone might take a chance on him and develop him as a signal caller. Well, what do you think, Kellyn?
He's been a 4-year starter, so I think you're definitely drafting him to be like a capable backup. I think very similar to what the Ravens have in Tyler Huntley, right? A guy who can come in, run your offense, win you a few games. I just don't know if he's too much more outside of that. He has played phenomenally lately. I'll give him that. He's a great college quarterback. He might end up with a 2020 season, which is a very, very rare club. Only guys like Cam Newton, Tim Tebow. I think there's one more. Johnny Manziel has been in that club. Lamar Jackson, obviously. Not even guys like Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields. Not even those guys were in that. So it's a very, very special fraternity to be in that 20 passing, 20 rushing touchdowns is what I mean. And I think he was only the second player in FBS history to have a 300-yard passing, 200-yard rushing game against Duke. I think he's only the second guy ever to do that, which is insane.
Lamar was a little bit close to that mark too, a little bit.
Yeah. Which was and Lamar was just. I mean, we saw Lamar. He was just a different type of beast in college. But Malik Cunningham has been fantastic. I think the Senior Bowl could really do him justice in a quarterback class. It's just underwhelming. I mean, he's going to go there. He's going to probably be against the Bailey Zappies and the Kenny Pickett's. Those guys who are good, but can they spin it like we've seen with? I mean, Baker Mayfield has been Josh Allen. They were both at the Senior Bowl. It's not going to be a class like that where you have two really high-powered, high-arm touted, high-arm talent guys. So I think he could really make a name as like a top tier 2 or tier 3 quarterback even in this class behind the Corrals and the Malik Willis, Carson Strong, Kenny Pickett. That's that type of crew.
Yeah, of course. Now we're going to the running backs a little bit. We're talking about UTSA running back Sincere McCormick. Now, it took a while finish for him against UAB last week, but, the Roadrunners entered the final week of the regular season undefeated. While McCormick, he's arguably coming off his worst game of the season, 20 attempts, 65 yards. He still scored his 12th touchdown of the season and his 4th consecutive game with a score. To finish off a perfect regular season, they faced off UNT, who they blew out a year ago. And that game, McCormick rushed for 251 yards and a touchdown. What round would you mock McCormick going to in next year's draft?
I couldn't really say. UTSA has been such a fun team to follow. I haven't really watched a ton of their games. I'm sure you'd be able to talk about him a lot more, but I think UTSA in the past has had a few guys that have garnered NFL attention at the running back position. I don't think any of them have worked out. But going back to like their first couple seasons, like Evans Okacha, I remember as a name. I don't know if he got drafted or made an NFL roster, but just guys that have been really productive for the Roadrunners, and good for them this year for having the season that they've had. They deserve it. They've played well. Hopefully they can finish it today. Like I said, I mean, rivalry week is one of those weird ones, but UTSA, I would take them again today. And McCormick has been fantastic for them. But like I said, I don't know if I've really watched enough to be able to project them like that.
And maybe you haven't watched a little bit of this running back as well from Utah, Tavion Thomas, one of the Utes running backs. You know, when people woke up last Sunday morning when Utah absolutely destroyed the Ducks, people wonder what the hell happened to the Ducks. And I'll tell you the answer right here. This guy on the screen, Tavion Thomas, he's been performing at a really, really good level for a scary good Ute squad. If you take a look at his last 3 games before last night's showing, against UCLA, 160 rush yards, 4 touchdowns. Against Stanford, 177 rush yards, 4 touchdowns. Against Oregon, 94 yards, 3 touchdowns. And yesterday, when he played up against Colorado, 25 carries, 142 yards, and a touchdown, which averages close to 6 yards a carry. Now look, he's been on fire. And they're probably going to play Oregon again in the Pac-12 title game next week. But if you have seen Tavion Thomas a little bit, what was your first impression of him?
Obviously a productive running back and a guy who has a nose for the end zone, right? I mean, between UCLA and Stanford, had 4 touchdowns in both of those games, had 3 against Oregon, had 1 last night. A guy who had, like I said, nose for the end zone, just knows how to get it done, right? And some college running backs are not always going to project great to the NFL level. And once again, I haven't watched Tavion Thomas a ton, but I mean, based on, if you're a stats guy, you like productive running backs, you like guys who get, high yards per carry. 5.8 for him this year and a ton of touchdowns. Haven't really seen a lot on the receiving side from him, but I mean he's getting it done on the ground with his legs, which is more than enough you can ask for, especially with this Utah team, a team that they have an MO, right? And it's not flashy, high volume, high octane offense. It's beat you with good running game, good defense, very classical. So it fits the Utes, it fits that mold. So he's been a really good player for them.
Now we go out wide to one of the wide receivers from Boston College, Zay Flowers, who's one of my favorite wide receivers to watch this season. Now, he's arguably the most dynamic receiver with the ball in his hands outside of Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. So there's still a lot of dynamic receivers in this class, but he's a little bit underrated. His game is built and is similar to Rondale Moore, you can say, who was a second-round pick last season. He's coming off a 3-catch, 92-yard, and 1 touchdown performance last week. He's going up against Wake Forest, and Wake Forest leads a high-scoring offense. So, Phil Jurkovec, he's going to need to lean on Flowers to make explosive plays to keep up with these Demon Deacons. That Demon Deacons secondary is not the best in the ACC, so they're going to try and bracket him, but Flowers will just need to explode off the line. He's going to get the ball in his hands. He has to leave this game with a tremendous, tremendous impact. And, if he declares, he joins, those other explosive weapons I just mentioned if he chooses to do so. So where do you see Flowers going in next year's draft?
In this receiver class, you're probably looking at like a round 3 probably type of guy. Some, you're probably going to have that big bunch that goes round 1. And even some guys might fall. Williams might fall to round 2. I don't know if he will, but it might happen. Pickens is going to fall. Drake London's going to fall because they're injuries. So you'll probably see him go round 2, round 3. Like you said, I mean, he's got that skill set with the ball in his hands. He's a bit bigger than Rondale Moore is, but he's got that same type of, how he wins. He's going to win with the ball in his hands. He's very smooth. He's very creative. He's not a great route runner. He's not great at the catch point. He's only 5'11", probably plays about 5'11". Some guys play a little bit bigger than what they are. I think he's right about where he plays, where he's at, which is fine. You can find a lot of ways to scheme that type of guy open in the NFL. You can find ways to get him the ball and win with him in the NFL. Obviously not going to be a high-level wide receiver 1 in the league, but a very talented and very you can work with a guy like that to be your second, third option, can be a gadget guy for you. Just like you said, find ways to get the ball in his hands, because that's where he's going to do the most damage. Like you said, him and Treylon Burks and a bunch of other guys that know how to do a bunch of good things with the ball in their hand. That's going to be what his MO is going into the draft.
Now we go to, we flip the field, we go to the defense, and I was put on this by a very close follower and friend of the podcast, Clay Ferrer, who was a Hokie graduate. We're talking Amari Barno once again. He's the Hokies' best pass rusher, and he's a great athlete with a long and lean frame. He's like 6'3". He's got a huge wingspan. And look, in the NFL, as they say, you can never have too many cornerbacks. Well, I can tell you now, with a lot of these mobile quarterbacks coming out, you can never have enough pass rushers in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Now, Barno, he'll be facing a high-octane passing attack led by Virginia quarterback Brennan Armstrong. Now, Armstrong, he's thrown for more than 4,000 yards in only 10 games. And in addition, he averages close to 45 attempts per game. So this should theoretically and realistically open up plenty of opportunities for Barno to pin his ear back and attack left tackle Bobby Haskins. He can create consistent pressure to disrupt Brennan Armstrong's gunslinging Hammond. So I do think he's going to be a defensive player worth watching this season. Now, look, not a lot of people know about Amari Barno, and because of that reason and his name, I mocked him around the late third, early fourth. But if he has, a game where he's able to consistently put 5 to 6 pressures on the quarterback and gain 1 to 2 sacks, does his stock go up a little bit with the amount of edge rushers in this class?
Yeah, and you're gonna find a lot of edge rush value in the middle rounds, like you kind of did last year. Not saying the edge was loaded last year, but it did go pretty deep. Guys like Quincy Roche and Jonathan Cooper, Cam Sample, guys that were drafted in the middle rounds like that. You'll find plenty of those guys, even more so this year, right? Because it's just a better class. It's just a deeper class. In the NFL, the ball is coming out so quick now. You're really going to want to focus on those long arm and trying to kind of strong pass rushers. That's just how you win more often now with the ball coming out so quick and just with the way NFL tackles operate. So if guys can do that, they can win with long arms. They can win with power or inside tracks. Obviously you can be pure speed and still win. You can turn speed to power. If he can do that, he'll be fine. But I mean, another guy to keep an eye out, like you said. I mean, you've done your homework. A guy like Amari Barno, so I'll be seeing him more and more as time goes on, and especially when we get to final reports and scouting.
So good on me for putting Barno
Absolutely
on to you for a little bit later on at the NFL Draft Bible.
Yes.
Honestly, next guy who I'm going to put up, I think he should win the Heisman this year, just based on what he's done. Okay, not just because he plays at Alabama. My God, Will Anderson, this guy right here. Okay, look, we're gonna go back to the Iron Bowl a little bit. Now, the Iron Bowl is as much about toughness as it is about skill. Anderson is tough, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is tough. He flies around the field in coverage and tackling ball handlers, and I feel like he's cracked the code on how to teleport places. I mean, you see him on one side of the field, the next second he's on the next, wrapping up the running back on the boundary side. He was coming from the field side as well. I mean, he's fast, man. He is fast, and he's fantastic at pressuring the quarterback too. He's got, I believe, last time I checked, 12 or 13 sacks, something like that, just behind the national leader. Mm-hmm. And he's recorded at least 1 sack in each of Alabama's last 5 games, which have all been wins. He's been a factor all over this defense. And in Alabama defense, they're going to have talent. But if a defensive talent stands out to you at Alabama, he's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
He lead 12 tackles against LSU, 11 against Arkansas last week. It's the Iron Bowl, man. What do you got to say about Will Anderson?
I think the difference between him and everyone else in the country, even with a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, who came into the year like that's going to be the number 1 pick, and he probably has cemented himself as that. Will Anderson is better than Kayvon Thibodeau, not by a large margin, but by a significant, I would say pretty comfortable. lead. I mean, I think the difference is he sees everything so well. He reacts to everything so well. That guy's getting off the line. He's getting his eyes up. It seems like he's shooting inside. He's playing lateral when he needs to. He's long arming guys. He's not thickly built like a Chase Young or like a Myles Garrett. He's pretty stacked, but he's not playing exactly like those guys are. But he's still winning in the same type of ways, right?
He is Will Anderson. Be
right,
you,
exactly.
right, Kellyn?
Exactly, man. He's Will Anderson himself, and he's going to be in that mold of pass rushers that we've seen, like that high tier of Garrett. I know Clowney hasn't turned out in the NFL, but as a prospect, he was one of those type of guys. Chase Young, the Bosa's, that type of high level pass rusher. He's going to be that next year. And he's already there. I mean, if he would be the number one pick in this year's draft if he could come out. But just a special football player, not just physically, but mentally, and just like I said, with his eyes, with that reaction time, he's just a different level of
he's very player. Disciplined, very technical too, and that's the type of prospect you want in your defense, either rushing the pass or getting after the running back, and even flying around in coverage too. Yeah. You don't see a lot of edge defenders drop back into coverage and do good enough to the point where you say, "Oh wow, like he can become a linebacker too."
Yeah, he can play. He can play off ball. He can play edge. He can play with his hand in the dirt. He's unlimited.
He's an unbelievable player. And we're gonna wrap it up with Roger Mccreery. I wanted to talk about Smoke Monday a little bit just because of his name, but we have to give kudos to Roger Mccreery. He's become one of the better cover corners in the nation, and he's improved year after year after year. Now look, playing quarterback in the SEC. You're battle tested already, man. You're ready for the NFL, even though you need a little bit of fine tuning. He's going to face his toughest challenge to date against an explosive receiver tandem from Tuscaloosa. You thought Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith would be hard? Try Jamison Williams and John Mechie III with Bryce Young slinging the rock. Okay, it is going to be intense. It's going to be a great litmus test for Roger Mccreery. Now, Kellyn, you're a quarterback. Indeed. What have you seen on the defensive side for Roger Mccreery lately?
The biggest thing that stands out to me, right, unfortunately, is the arm length. I think he's sub 30-inch arms, which is not ideal for an NFL corner, whether you're nickel or outside. I think the only guy drafted this year that had arms around that was Elijah Molden, who's been okay for the Tennessee Titans, but even like Asante Samuel, some of the smaller guys, they've had plus 30-inch arms. So McCreary's going to struggle there, but he's still a solid press corner. He's better in 2021 than he was in 2020. I thought Pritchett was the better corner last year. McCreery has been much better this year. I think he's actually better than Noah Igbenogany was coming out right now.
And Noah Igbenogany can't get onto the field, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that was just a bad pick, and I think Noah was unfair expectations for him as a first rounder. He shouldn't have been a first rounder, but I think both McCreery and Pritchett are better at this point than Iggy was. But a guy who can turn and run, a guy who plays really well with his hips, really can high hip in and out of turns, plays really well with that T-step coming in and out of breaks. So not really a limited football player outside of the size, right? He's short. I think he's 5'8", 5'9". Like I said, the arms are obviously an issue. But outside of that, a really good competitor, a really good cover corner. Probably not going to be one of the top corners. I don't think he's a first rounder this year. I don't really get that type of hype. There's better corners in this class than him, obviously, with Booth Stingley, Sauce Gardner, Elam, a bunch of those guys.
My boy Darian Kendrick, man.
Darian Kendrick is also he's a first round guy to me this year. I'll talk about him some other time. But that guy's a player.
Trent McDuffie out of Washington.
McDuffie, Kyler Gordon, all those guys.
That Apple Cup was
yeah.
You know it.
Yeah. But I think McCreary's he's another guy who's probably looking at day 2, maybe day 3 with those arms that might scare an NFL team off. But based on where they drafted Molden, I think he'll probably still be able to maybe, if they'll probably ask him to play safety or test at safety, or not test at safety, but to work out at safety for a few teams more so than corner. So we'll see.
Of course, and we will see. And we got about 4 minutes left till the game starts. So Kellyn, where can our viewers find you at?
I'm at the NFL Draft Bible. I'm a regional scout for them. So my report, I haven't been doing a lot of reports lately, but just because I go to Ohio State, I play club football there, and our season, we got the national championship next Saturday. So once that's over, I'll be able to do full-time scouting. So got to focus on winning that one before I can do anything else. Scouting will have to take a back burner for a week, but got to get that done. And then, like I said, after that, find me at the Draft Bible, see some of my reports. I have a podcast in the film room with Kellyn and Lorenzo, so we'll probably have you on eventually. And we do some Twitch live
Lorenzo
streams.
was on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember that. So we'll have you on. We'll reverse. We'll flip the script, and but yeah, yeah.
Gonna love it, man. And look, I'm not as technically proficient as you guys, but I got some basic level.
You're good, man. You're good.
Some basic level, so I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the games today. I know you are, Kellyn, so absolutely. I'm gonna let you go, my man. Thank you so much for joining, and everybody enjoy your football Saturday. Let's hope the Dolphins get this dub against Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. As always, guys, fins up, baby.